Welcome back to another episode of Not Again with Dany Acosta. Today we have an incredible, amazing performer, and we're gonna give the time over to JD Debris. Take it away, bro.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me here, Danny. I'm gonna start it off with the first poem from my book that came out last year, The Scorpion's Question Mark. It's the first poem in the book. It's called Aparecida Early Spring. And I'm gonna set it to a little bit of music right here. So Aparecida. Aparecida, early spring, yeah, early spring, yeah, early spring, yeah, early spring, yeah. A long exhale at the end of a hyperventilating season. All winter, nothing touched my neck except the clenched, manic teeth of the electric razor. The beach wind salts. Ooh, Marvin Hagler, my home state's fiercest fighter. A man so mean they say hair feared his sweat gleamed skull is gone. Ooh, rest in power, Marvin Hagler. Rest in peace, yeah. Rest in peace, yeah. I've mimicked his ritual. Mornings, breathless, sprinting the hill. A sea and continent apart, your curls have been on my mind. And by the logic and legend of that bald, fallen boxer, your curls mean mercy. Are wild and fertile as these blossoms blindsiding New England spring. Vines around a cello's neck, its body split, a beehive inside. I dreamt we kissed so slow, it was like breathing for the first time. Ooh, Aparecida. Aparecida.
Yeah, bro. That's what I'm talking about, man. So, JD Debris, what's up, man? How you doing this evening?
Man, living large.
That's awesome, man. I love it. Dude, Polish, Cape Verdean? Did I get that right?
Well, yeah, I mean, those are a few elements in the gumbo that is my heritage, but that's yeah, it's predominant. That about suffices. Yeah, I'm of a mixed heritage though, so I'm attracted in general to hybrid forms, right? And hybrid things. There's no purity whatsoever in in my makeup or my constitution. And perhaps that's a concept that we'll start to move away from socially. Purity, I mean. And embrace more of the hybridity, embrace more of the mix, you know, and I try to do that with my art that I create too, you know, and bring in hybrid forms. That's the root of things, man. If you get back to it, right, we all come from different elements joining, different elements forming something new. You get back to the roots of poetry. Poetry was sung, right, in various cultures all around the world. The more that we learn about anthropology, the more woke that we get to that. And I use woke in the older sense of the term, but the more woke we get to that, the more we realize that things that seem like novelties, things that seem like maybe an aberration from tradition are actually more rooted in tradition, right?
It's really interesting how you're able to weave and fuse together a lot of these different elements in your life and talk about them and express them in such a way that it transcends a desire and a thirst, really a hunger for other folks to want to explore that side of their lives.
Yeah, I think, the more that you embrace things that feel not only natural, but that feel like they give life to others, right? The more that you embrace those things, even if they might not fit into the accepted boxes, I think the more comfortable I've been, following that route. I didn't when I started mixing the music and poetry together again. The last thing I wanted to do was to be self-indulgent, right? And to just be up there going, oh, la, 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 and just, and just kind of indulging myself and like, listen to me sing while people are like, all right, get to the point.
Yeah.
So when I tried this out again, and this is something I messed with on and off throughout the course of my life, but when I tried this again recently after the book came out, I wanted to gauge the audience response. And if people were not vibing with it, I would try to change that to something that not just for the sake of popularity, but for the sake of people's enjoyment, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to be up there self-indulgent. So I wanted to bring something that felt natural but felt unexpected, right? And I think when you get to the roots of things, there's often an element of surprise. Something that G.K. Chesterton said, every worthwhile revolution is rooted in the old. And whether or not you agree with that, I think there's certainly a kernel of truth in that. In terms of trying something new, we're often looking to the roots. And in my case, I'm looking to, I'm looking to griots, and I'm looking to lyric poets, like poets who were playing to a lyre. I'm looking to poets, in West Africa who were the record keepers, who were the historians, and who would sing this stuff. So to write the record of not only your life but your people's lives, and set that to verse and set that to music, I think that's aspirational, right? Our culture doesn't have that in a major way. We do have a great or a very successful entertainment industry, right? But that's kind of a different matter.
Tell us a little bit about growing up. We were talking about you being in Salem and so forth. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, man. I had a boring upbringing. Like I say, I was even an altar boy, and I came out clean. So I don't have any stories from my childhood, man.
Okay,
I got nothing.
okay.
But no, I mean, I've been doing the creative thing for a long time. I was an athlete too. That was big to me. I just played pickup hoop pretty much constantly as a kid. I was a boxer. I was an amateur boxer for a minute. So any lapses in speech or memory, blame it on that. But yeah, sports was big to me, and I was just always creating, man. I was always encouraged to do that, and I'm lucky.
Do you think being altar boy was foreshadowing anything in your life so far?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still Catholic. I say that as kind of an off-color joke. Like, obviously, I you know what I mean. Like, I'm not trying to be nasty to anyone or anything.
Yeah, no.
But just in terms of like, that was probably the most dangerous thing that I did, and that wasn't even dangerous. Like, it was cool, and I'm still Catholic. Like, I got love for the Catholic Church. I have my criticisms, like any woke Catholic does, but yeah, I mean, I'm still Catholic. You know what I'm saying? I got no complaints about my childhood, and I've been doing this stuff pretty steady, in terms of creativity.
How long you been
since a child, man? So
well, tell us a little bit about that. How do you get introduced to poetry?
Probably just through rap and music. Like, I think that's probably the way that most kids are going to get into it, right? And then after that, you start hearing the slam stuff and the performance stuff, Saul Williams and dudes like that. But before all that, yeah, I mean, I think it was mostly just rap and just being at the basketball court, and people would just start battling and freestyling, and it would all just be a means of making fun of each other and upping yourself, and creating that self mythology. There's an art to it, man. It's all that play. I think if you grow up with that sense of horseplay and that sense of wordplay, it never leaves you. And so I still have that chronic inability to take myself too seriously, even if I am still creating the self mythology. But yeah, it started just like that. But that's kind of prehistory. And like, I wasn't taking it too seriously, but I was still writing stuff and reading it, for my friends. But if you're a young man, and you're writing poetry, you can get clowned very easily,
Oh
right? So
yeah.
you do have to develop a steel backbone for that. But the moment, and if you don't mind, I got a little story about this.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the moment that I knew I would stick with this stuff was when I met Paul Pierce. I don't know if you're an NBA fan. There was a basketball player, Paul Pierce, who was, he was like one of the great Celtics
Mm.
players, and I met him when I was probably like 9 or 10 years old. A friend and I went to this in-store event. He's signing autographs, whatever. We waited in line, and I had written a poem like about Paul Pierce.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I gave it to him, and he actually he read it when we were up there at the table, or if he didn't read it, he at least looked at the paper for 2 minutes. Like I give him the benefit of the doubt. I think he actually read the thing, and that was really cool. It was like a long 2 minutes, right? Because somebody that you idolize is reading your work, and you're like this little kid, and he said, "Man, thanks for this." Dapped me up and said, "I'm gonna hang this in my locker." And I don't know if he actually did, but I remember my friend that I left with afterwards. Like I could tell that he really respected that I had that gift, right? And was able to like communicate with somebody that we all admired and we all looked up to. That was like giving your poem to, to Batman or whatever.
Like
Like
giving
that was
feedback from Shakespeare.
exactly, or at least Spider-Man, right? These were our heroes. These were our heroes as kids. And yeah, and people started saying, "Oh, that's the poet." You know what I mean? People started saying that about me, and that was an identity that I really vibed with, just in terms of being able to say something that encapsulates something that others are feeling in words that they might not use to encapsulate that feeling. So,
Then you transition into Salem State.
yeah, we'll fast forward like 20 years to Salem State, but yeah, I did most of my undergrad at Salem State and
What was your major?
at Bunker Hill too. I majored in English.
Nice.
Surprisingly, yeah, I got one talent, man.
Yeah. Hey, man, one is too many sometimes, And well, dude, when we met at Walnut Street Cafe where they have open mics on Wednesdays, right? And when we met, you did this poem that really stood out to me, and I was just shouting from the crowd, like, dude, have you been to LA? When you were talking about Pacific, and you were talking about like these places where a lot of Mexicans hang out and they play like corridos and all of this kind of music. But the way you talked about it, I swear, bro, I walked out of there. I even told you this at the time. I swear it felt like you had been there. You knew the whole thing. And when you told me, "Oh no, I just did my research," I was like, bro, blown away. Just amazing, amazing gift that you have in being able to transcend the story that really submerges you in the moment, the smell, the feel. I mean, I grew up in Compton, right? So when you talk about like being at the basketball court and people just like, freestyling around, like I would hang out with gang members and they would just be shooting dice and freestyling, right? So I really, really do relate with that. And Salem State, you met a mentor.
Yeah, that's facts. Well, I want to say thanks first of all, and massive respect for you remembering. I remember when we performed together, and yeah, likewise, I was blown away by the stuff that you performed, the improvisational energy that you brought to it. The give me 3 words from the audience, and you incorporated those words off the dome. It was incredible, and just the energy in that performance was life giving. It was contagious. But yeah, I remember appreciating your feedback so much because I could tell you were real as hell. Like I could tell that. You don't just throw out feedback. You don't just throw out praise at people just to stroke somebody's ego or whatever,
right,
or just to network. Obviously you're a nice guy, but no, I could tell your feedback was coming from a genuine place, and that meant a lot, man, because with that particular poem, it felt like if I was going to step outside of my comfort zone and my geography, like obviously I'm tending to set things more in the Northeast when I write. But if I was going to step outside of my geography to engage with this story I wanted to engage with, I better get it right. You know what I mean? And that's one of the cool things about living in this era and writing and creating in the time that we're in, is that for better or worse, you have access to a lot of source materials. And you can go on YouTube and watch people in like El Corralón or whatever, like whatever club in 1992 or something. Yeah, and you see, what are people wearing? What are people drinking? What does it look like in the VIP? What does it look like out on the dance floor? What steps are they doing? You know what I mean? what's the ratio of cowboy boots to like, you know, Chuck Taylors or whatever. It's like, oh, that's 100 to 1, isn't it? But yeah, it's like you can get a texture for that scenario. And you know, if I'm engaging with these characters, I want to honor them, and I also want to honor my very distant perspective and where I'm coming from. I'm coming from the other corner of the continent, you know, and I was thinking about Western cinema, like the genre of the Western, and how a lot of that was, you know, you look at a director like John Ford, who was, his family was Irish, like Irish immigrants, and he was growing up in Portland, Maine, and he was making some of these Westerns that have defined not only this continent, but the world's image of the West, of this mythic West, right? With the Monument Valley and these rolling empty landscapes. And it's like, this was an Irish guy from Portland, Maine, who had such a hand in doing this. We think of mythologies, and so much of it is a construction, right? Not to say that it's fake, but that somebody is making a conscious decision somewhere along the way to stylize the mythology as such. And I was very conscious of that writing this long poem, Chalino Sanchez. You know, just the facts, like to think critically about how mythologies are formed, how they morph, and how an artist, how a creator's own stance towards the material does something to the material, right? And by me acknowledging up front, the first subtitle in the poem, there's like, it says Chalino Sanchez, and then the subtitle says New York 2020, which of course was a time that Chalino was not alive.
Right. Yeah.
It's a time that Adan was not alive, tragically. And it's a place that he was not, I don't know if he ever got to New York City. You know what I mean? I think he was mostly in the Southwest and in northern Mexico for the most part. So that distance, I think, between subjects and writer was part of the construction and part of the poem. That said, that didn't give me license to screw everything up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, so there's that with that poem. Yeah.
With Salem State, you were mentioning earlier, I was mentioning to you that I went to Salem Writers Group not too long ago, and I met JD there, and you were like, oh, that funny enough, he's one of my mentors. And I was under the impression it was you. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. And so when I went, and dude, really great experience. If any writers out there are watching and they're in the North Shore area or just in Massachusetts in general, you want to check out a really cool place, just look up Salem Writers Group over here on Facebook. Just search it up, and they meet on Tuesdays. But dude, tell us about how you met JD and how has he been a mentor in your life?
Yeah, JD Scrim's a fantastic writer, and I would highly recommend checking out his latest book called Banana Bread, which he wrote in Chinese, a language he learns as an adult and translated into English. So he was working with a more limited vocabulary of somebody learning a language. It's a super interesting collection, and it kind of flips certain ways that I think about writing. You know what I mean? What happens if you really limit the palette that you get to work with? You know, I'm somebody who likes, you know, who grew up with Nas and whatever. So I always liked writers who bring in random, writerly, obscure words.
Yeah.
And bring in this kind of hyper specific vocabulary. So for me to look at somebody writing at a very high level with a super limited palette, like he would claim that he has a kindergartner's grasp, or he had a kindergartner's grasp of the language when he wrote that. JD, if you're out there somewhere, you know, and you want to correct me, sorry. But yeah, anyway, I mean, Scrim's he really took me under his wing and showed me how to do this. You know, I didn't really have a model, and this is no disrespect to, you know, the people who raised me, but I didn't really have a model for a working writer. You know, I didn't really know writers like that. And to me, him showed me that this is viable, man. This is, like, when I've been to his house and I've seen the life that he lives and how he gives back to the community and how he welcomes people into his home and how he's really, I've seen the positive impact that he's had in Salem, you know, in the surrounding area in Boston, you know, and I'm like, that's something that I could do. And of course it sounds like some stalker business when I'm like, yeah, I went into his house and I saw the way he was living, and I was like, I want to be like you, and we have the same name, bro. No, but
Yeah, exactly.
I swear it's not single white female, but anyway, so when I was first enrolled in Salem State, he was running the freshman orientation.
Okay.
So he gave a little talk and he said his name and he said, I love poetry. I love writing nonfiction.
Like the first year college student experience kind of thing.
Yeah, it was like late August or something, and they had all the freshmen go, and I was a couple years behind everybody, so I kind of had like a carpe diem attitude, like I don't care if these people think I'm a weirdo. I want to meet the people that I need to meet, and I want to do the things I need to do, and I don't care if people think I'm a lame or a tryhard or whatever. I'm gonna do it. So JD gave his speech at the beginning of this, and mentioned he was a writer, an English professor, and a sports fan, and an athlete. And I was like, wow, this sounds really cool. And his name's JD. So I went up to him and said, hey, my name's JD. I'm into writing, I'm into sports. And yeah, he was like, this sounds like a cool guy. So we hit it off from there, man. And he took me under his wing. I was writing some like juvenilia, I was writing some kind of immature stuff just because I hadn't lived enough. I hadn't read enough. I hadn't had a mentor yet. So, it takes patience and it takes foresight, and it takes like a nurturing spirit to have the patience to work with somebody raw like that. Like when I work with students, when I work with 18, 19, 20-year-olds now, I'm like, y'all are so much smarter and more developed than I was. Like I was just such an idiot. So just the fact that he had patience for me, because I was reading for fun, you know what I mean? And I wasn't somebody who was, setting out to write because I thought there was big money in it, because I thought people would take me seriously, or because my parents wanted me to do it. I was writing and reading just for the love of it, and asking them questions like, oh, did you know Larry Levis? Like, did you know? And it turns out he actually was a student of my favorite writer of all time, Yusef Koman-Yaka, who is, in my book, the great American poet. He was J.D. Scrimger's professor back in the 1980s, and Yusef became my thesis advisor when I went to the Master of Fine Arts program at New York University. Wow. So meeting him, like I went into that freshman orientation, like, the hell with it. Like, I don't care if people think I'm a cornball. I'm going to talk to people if I want to. I want to get into the things I want to get into.
Yeah.
And yeah, hey, it was a fortuitous kind of meeting. Like, I think we were meant to meet each other. I know he's been like a catalyst in my life. He's really got me.
There's a lot of a hero's journey in that, right? It's like the typical farm boy grows up, no purpose kind of thing, but he knows there's something there. Then ends up meeting these like wise guys that kind of mentor him, give him the tools and of the trade, if you will, and eventually you end up developing your own voice, but you bring it back to people in such a way that it doesn't provoke barriers for you, but it allows you to get into the niche places where most, if not mainstream, a lot of people think, oh, no, there's nothing there. But when you get into the roots and the weeds of it, I think it's very valuable, man. And somebody has to do it, right? There's a lot of people out there that are interested in a lot of indie workers and a lot of indie kind of topics, but there's not enough, as the Bible would say, the harvest is great, but the laborers are few. And so there's so much content and poetry to be written, but there's so little writers sometimes that don't want to get into the weeds of getting outside of what mainstream wants you to write or what mainstream wants you to conform with. But for the sake of time, man, Scorpions ? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we got the book out. It's been out for about a year now with Autumn House Press. It's available in libraries and bookstores. But yeah, I've been super happy with it. It won the Donald Justice Prize, which is a prize for formal poetry. Thank you. Yeah. So poetry with some rhyme and some meter to it. It's not strict. It's not, stuffy, but it does have some elements of form to it, some play with form. So it won that prize. It was selected by a poet named Cornelius Eady, who is one of my favorite American poets. He's a hero of mine. So it was I shed a thug tear when I found out that he picked the book for the prize. That meant a lot. Yeah. That Cornelius Eady, thought highly of it. So yeah, man, it was a few years of my life really dedicated to trying to get this as right as possible. And hey, I'm proud of it. You know, it's out there, it's doing its thing. And yeah, I've been doing some shows, supporting it here and there whenever I can. And yeah,
Yeah,
it's been
we'll
a
be putting
blessing.
the link in the description of this video for people to check it out and get it. Dude, there was a line that you mentioned. I believe it was something along the lines of vines, what was it, like vines curled around the cello's neck or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. And dude, I got this like vivid picture. You probably seen it way back when you and I were both young and MySpace was around. There used to be this picture of the back of a girl, but her body, the silhouette of her body formed the cello, and she had the kind of like the swirly lines of a cello within her back. Do you remember that picture?
Yeah, now that you say that, it comes back to me. I had
That's
forgotten about
literally
that
what I pictured,
until
and
that.
like beautiful hair just like curled around her neck and her shoulders, and oh, dude, what a vivid imagery! That, but tell us about the title of the whole book. The Scorpion's question mark. Like, I think of a tale, obviously, but I'm sure there's more to it.
Yeah, so it comes from a poet named Aimé Césaire, who was also the president of Martinique, and was instrumental in that island gaining its independence from the French and becoming part of the French Commonwealth, instead of, you know, a French overseas territory. Anyway, Aimé Césaire, fantastic poet, kind of a surrealist, you know, had this phenomenal book called Notebook of a Return to My Native Land. Another one, Lost Body, and another one, Solar Throat Slashed. He's a formative influence on me. You know, somebody he's like one of the poets I was reading and asking J.D. Scrimger about as a 19-year-old. You know, I just kind of stumbled on his stuff. I was blown away by it, man. But he has a poem called Ex Voto for a Shipwreck. And there's a line in that, like the Scorpion's question mark. And that image stuck with me. So when I was writing this book, I was thinking a lot about the intertwinement of certainty and doubt. And I'm always thinking about certainty and doubt and bravery and cowardice. Those are like the things I always come back to. And if you listen to Mike Tyson or if you listen to boxers talk about fear, right, you realize that fear is instrumental to bravery. Fear is inextricable from bravery. Bravery doesn't mean that you're never afraid. Bravery probably means that you're afraid all the time, right? And that you just know how to harness that fear. Like Mike Tyson said, fear is like fire, right? It can, I don't know what he said. It can heat your house or it can burn down your house, right?
Well, Conan O'Brien, who's native to Massachusetts, also mentioned how his compensation for being bullied was learning how to use his mouth, right? To be funny, but that kind of also kept away bullies in a way. And it's like the yin and yang, right? It's like the force, the dark side, and the light side, and so forth. And intertwining these things, I kind of imagine like the DNA kind of swirl, where it's like they bind together, but they live with each other. And getting best of both worlds really does help a lot. When you mentioned the title, the first thing I thought about was like a scorpion talking and asking, like, do you really want to find out about this tale kind of thing, you know? And how do you get solid on that title?
Yeah, man.
Because it's hard, man. As a writer, I'm like, dude, it's really hard to get a title going and really like sticking to it, you know?
Yeah. No, thanks for that. And I think what you're saying about the title is like something that I hoped somebody would say. I don't know. I had some working titles that I don't even remember, but I was talking to Yusef Komanyaka, who worked with me on the book. It was my thesis. It started as my thesis at NYU. He was working with me on it, and I kind of gave him like 3 titles after I'd already like kind of tried and failed 3 titles, and he was like, no, like you have to think of something else. You know, he wasn't really feeling any of my working titles, and when I suggested this, he was like, oh, that could work. And I was not trying to use like somebody else's quote as a title. But for Aimé Césaire, I was like, yeah, I think I can make an exception here because, it's what he did is just so central to the way that I think about language and its possibilities and like even its social implications, even though he wasn't writing poetry that seems super political in its messaging. Like it's not something that you would shout at a protest necessarily, but it was still radical in its transformative vision. And yeah,
I'm gonna throw a curveball at you. This is a question that we've asked all of our guests, so it's a huge curveball because it has nothing to do with what we talked about so far. Uh, what is your favorite restaurant in all of Lynn?
favorite restaurant in Lynn, probably Green Tea.
Oh, word.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Dude, my wife got me orange chicken from there,
yeah.
and there was this other one. It was like spicy something. It was pretty good.
Green
Yeah.
Green Tea 1A and tied for number one. Shout out Trios Mexican Bar and Grill.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, the
Yeah, dude.
Dominicans holding it down, even though it says Mexican on the sign. Sorry, Dominicans holding it down over there, man.
Yeah, dude.
So yeah, shout out to my people at Trios.
Yeah, yeah. I'll have to. We'll be posting this up, so they'll definitely see you throw it out there. Hopefully, they'll hook you up. No, but dude. So publishing a book is a process, and in the midst of writing, rewriting, as you know, it's like, oh my gosh, when is the rewriting phase gonna stop? And I just need to put this out there. How many poems are in this book, and how would you describe the book cover to our visually impaired community?
It's 88 pages. I don't know how many poems are in it, but there's some blank pages too. You know, so first question, how do I know when things are done? Once I had like a book shaped thing, once my thesis was done, I knew it wasn't finished, but I knew it was close enough. And I started submitting it to a few contests just so I would feel like it was done, just as a way of kind of throwing myself in the deep end. I'm like, it's done enough. I know it's not going to win these first 2-3 submissions. But I need to push myself into this water and, learn to, sink or swim. And I was revising a lot as it was out on submission. So, I ended up changing a lot in the submission process. This stuff's never done. It's just abandoned. But, I think there's something to be said about just throwing yourself in the deep end.
And how would you describe the book cover?
The book cover, it is a photo by a jazz photographer, or I should say a photographer who photographed a lot of jazz musicians like Miles Davis. The photographer's name is Lou Jones, and he's based out of Boston. He's worked out of Boston for a long time. And there is a photo of a jazz musician named Gato Barbieri on the cover. And I have a sequence named after Gato Barbieri. That's one of the long poems in the book. And it's Gato Barbieri standing on the steps of a church in a long black coat with a bright red scarf. His face is lit up by the cigarette that he's lighting. There's a poster for a mime show, and there's a handwritten sign taped to the cathedral wall that says "Morning Worship in Chapel. Enter here."
Wow. That sounds powerful, bro. Oh my gosh.
It's a cool photo, and I have a lot of respect for Lou Jones's work. So it was cool as hell to have a Lou Jones photo on the cover of this, especially, he's a jazz cat, he's a Boston dude. He's doing this project now where he's doing like he's doing a photography project in all the countries of Africa. Like he's touring around and kind of doing a residency in each place, and just like it's kind of like artistic practice as learning practice. You know what I mean? And that's something that I really admire and aspire to. And his work is just cool as hell. So I'm just glad, that I could have my name attached to it in that way, as like, and kind of have that cosign. I don't think he knows who I am, but like, just to be affiliated with it secondhand.
Well, it's admirable, man. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let's do two things before I really want to give you more time for poetry and just allow the audience to be able to enjoy that. Two quick things, just if we could answer that in under like a minute. Number one is, how would you describe the back cover of your book?
The back cover has some hype. It has some nice words from Yusef Komanyaka, who was my thesis advisor, Ilya Kaminsky, the author of a great book called Deaf Republic, and January Gill O'Neill, who's a great poet and professor based out of Beverly.
And we always give time to all of our guests to be able to honor a person in their lives. It could be a mentor, a parent, a family member, a partner, whatever it might be. Who would you like to honor today? And just directing yourself to the camera, what would be your words to them?
Yeah, shout out my moms. Thanks for raising me. Thanks for fixing up my braids, and thanks for always being there, being just like somebody who's encouraged me to do what I do, and if giving me the sense that if I'm happy, she's gonna be happy with me. So
What's
Shout out
mom's
my
name?
mom. Shout out my mom, Deborah Debsky.
Deborah. What's up? Thank you so much for allowing us to have JD here tonight. And dude, everybody watching, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you put a like on this video. Share your comments and make sure you share with people that are being inspired or are in the process of writing, rewriting, or maybe just want to get back into poetry and do what they actually love to do, not fall into a cookie cut society, but really follow their heart and their purpose in life. So, dude, the time with you.
All right, Danny. Thanks so much for this, man. How about I give it one more poem? Does
Sure.
that work? We'll do one more. All right. Yeah, I'll play the first part of that Chalino Sanchez poem. This is New York 2020. I'm just cool. Yeah. Let me just make sure my thing's in tune. Chalino Sanchez Felix. Chalino Sanchez Felix. Chalino Sanchez Felix. Chalino Sanchez Felix. Chalino Sanchez Felix used to be living this hour when our borderlines barbed wire crawls vining across the throat, when its shadows fall in spirals and tighten. The corrido begins like this. Declare you're about to sing one. Something like this. Voy a cantar un corrido. Señores, esto pasó. Murió un hombre de valor. Un cobarde lo mató. First verse, Glock against the smuggler's jaw. Ford conquistador speeding away in the second. Feliz. Third and final, as silver trumpets sway, you hear the tall pines crying on their ridge. Chalino Sanchez Felix. But before all those beginnings, the corrido begins in commerce. Barter a crime lord's tribute song for a pistol or a crucifix. Lionize a henchman for a ram's horn stuffed with 20s. Chalino Sanchez Felix. But before all those beginnings, this. You kill your sister's rapist at an all-night party. Felix, you cross the border. Sanchez Felix. You're 15, invincible and cursed. Chalino Sanchez Felix. Chalino Sanchez Felix. Chalino Sanchez Felix. Chalino Sanchez Felix.
Dude. Oh my gosh. Louis, do we have time for one more? Yeah?
Ooh.
You down to do something spontaneous tonight?
Yeah, I can do that.
I'll throw you 3 words,
Oh, that's spontaneous? Okay.
but I want you to do something for mom with the guitar.
Okay. Yeah,
You got
yeah.
it?
Yeah, all right, that sounds good.
All right. Let's do motherhood.
Yeah.
Let's do, I don't know why, but I'm thinking diary. And the third, let's do I'll just keep it general. Maybe you could throw some in there that remind you of her flowers.
All right.
Motherhood, diary, flowers.
Motherhood, diarrhea, flowers. Got you. Even when you had diarrhea, you were my mama mia. That's not what you said. You said diary. Yeah, okay, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. She'll still laugh about it.
It's very relatable. Motherhood is not always bliss, no. I know I was a pain most of the time, but it's still on my mind. But I don't keep a diary, no. But these poems are everything I have to say to you. So here's your flowers. It's the best I can do. And I can't grow no flowers. I'm not a gardener. All I got is this guitar and the songs I play for you. But a motherhood is sometimes so far from bliss. Let's try that again. Sometimes so far from bliss. So yeah. And it's the best that I got. 'Cause Dany Acosta just put me on the spot. But this song is for you.
Throw your social media out there, bro. One more time for the audience.
Yeah, so my name is JD Debris. That's DEBRIS. I'm on Instagram, JD Debris. And that's about it. And I'm not even really active on there. But you know, if you see me on the street, say hey. But see me around the city, say what's up. But yeah, JD Debris on Instagram. Thank you so much for having me on here, Dany.
Awesome. Thank you, JD. Guys, everybody, make sure you check out the Instagram, JD Debris. He's on my Instagram as well. If you guys want to follow, just check out mine. He's right there. And also check out the book, man. Scorpions ? In stores, in the library. Go check it out. Go support local artists, local poets. And dude, thank you so much. It was a privilege and honor having you guys here. Remember to make sure that you walk by faith, not by sight. And I'll see you guys next time. God bless you and have a good one. Peace out, guys. Take care.